So, greetings to all. I am Nimbus, a 19-year-old Western mountain dragon from Texas, and welcome to my panel on speculative draconic biology. This panel will discuss how dragons would work and live in the real world. It is important to note that this will be heavily based around my own understanding of my draconity, so to speak. However, at the end, I will invite audience members to discuss their own draconic biology if they wish to. I would also like to mention that I do have a stutter on occasion, so apologies if I trip up on my words. And this is my first time doing a panel, so this is more just me talking at you guys about and kind of a bit of an info dump rather than a panel because, again, this is my first time. But without further ado, let's get into it. Oh wait, hold on. I forgot to go to the next slide. This is me, my intro. That's me as a dragon, me with my cool mask and jacket. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So that is spelled wrong. What the hell? Art by Drac Drawings. I autocorrect got to that, I guess. Oh god, this is okay. Anyways, so what makes a dragon a dragon? Some might say it's being a scaly, fire-breathing monster with wings, but honestly, there's so much diversity in draconic legends and in the dragonkin community that it's hard to precisely pin down what a dragon is. We just are. But due to the fact that there's just so many different kinds of dragons and that I can't cover them all, I will mostly be focusing on some more common depictions like Western dragons, sea serpents with wyverns, that sort of thing. So these other guys are very cool. I love hydras, very awesome. Long dragons, very cool. Amphitheaters, all these guys are very awesome, very valid, but I will be focusing mostly on more common depictions of dragons. Particularly Western dragons. So a Western dragon is typically depicted with horns, scales, 4 legs, 2 wings, 1 tail, and 1 head, though this can vary. Some breathe fire and some don't. Western dragons are one of the most popular ways of depicting dragons, as seen with Wings of Fire, medieval legends, and How to Train Your Dragon. And the inspiration behind this panel was Dragons, a fantasy made real, and will thus feature some theories from the mockumentary. This mockumentary follows the narrative of a scientist trying to prove dragons existed once but went extinct. Many dragonkin, myself included, hold this mockumentary close to their heart. So, this documentary really is very important to me. And, well, let's properly get into things now. So, because Earth is so diverse in biomes and climates, dragons would have to specialize to these places. Mountains, forests, savannas, tundras, oceans, etc. are all present, and because of the wealth of diversity in the draconic population, there are dragons from each and every biome. Because there are so many places a dragon can live, I will focus on mountains, oceans, and deserts. If I went through every biome, we would be here forever. So this is, so perhaps the most popularized biome for dragons are mountains. I would know. I'm a mountain dragon myself. This is me. This is some art a friend made for me. This is their @ on Instagram. Go check them out. They make really good art. But for a dragon to thrive in the mountains, flight would be very important, so they would likely require large wings. Due to the thin air, a large heart and larger lung capacity, along with a higher concentration of red blood cells, would be necessary for proper breathing. It would also make sense for this type of dragon to be warm-blooded or to have fire breath that warms them from the inside out. Mountain dragons would also most likely have tougher and thicker scales to keep warm and defend from threats. And scale colors would most likely be either muted or monotone, though bright colors to ward off predators would also make sense, as seen with skywings. With most of the dragons I encountered in my life, we mostly had the monotone color scheme to blend in. So as you can see with me, yeah. Next up, We have ocean dragons, and by the way, I feel I should mention Wings of Fire is perhaps my favorite book series, so there will be a lot of Wings of Fire talk in this panel. Apologies if you don't know much about it. I will talk about it though. But now this was one of my favorite portions too because I love the ocean, and yes, I am counting a Subnautica Leviathan as a dragon. Anyways, oceans are vastly diverse in features and perhaps one of my favorite things to talk about. For optimal underwater survival, a long body, flattened tail, webbed talons, and gills would be helpful, along with smaller wings or no wings at all. Bony fish possess operculum, which are bony flaps that protect and cover gills. Sea dragons would likely need these for protection during hunting and fights, and you can see them on sea wings, and I believe you can also see them on the sea dragon Leviathan. A third eyelid, or I don't think I'm going to pronounce this word right, but nictitating membrane would also be very useful, or perhaps an eye cap if we're going off of snakes and other reptiles. Swim bladders would also make sense to have. Where is it? Okay, yes. For those who do not know, a swim bladder is an expandable sac within a fish that they fill with oxygen collected from the gills to aid in buoyancy. However, not all marine animals breathe underwater. Some breathe air and even go on land. Some sea dragons may have an increased lung capacity and even be able to withstand deep pressure while diving, akin to sperm whales. So yeah, they would likely go on land to reproduce, escape predators, or hunt if prey is scarce. In order to be able to hold their breath for longer, they would have to slow their heart rate, and in order to avoid swallowing water when hunting, they would keep the palatal valve, an adaptation in crocodiles that seals the throat shut, and go to the surface to eat once prey is caught. Air-breathing sea dragons would likely either sleep near the surface or on land if it's close enough. Both types of sea dragon would likely have counter shading as well, which is being dark colored on top and light colored from below for camouflage. Animals looking down see darkness, while animals looking up see light. You can see this in this Mosasaurus rendition with the light coloring on the bottom and the dark coloring on top, and you can also see it on this crocodile, darker colored on top, lighter colored on bottom. Very interesting. And for our final biome, we're talking about the desert. The desert is a hard place to live, and real-world animals do not disappoint with cool adaptations, as you can see with the thorny devil right here. Desert dragons would likely need thick, tough scales to defend from the sun and keep water in. They'd likely be tan or otherwise pale to blend in with the sand and not absorb too much heat. They would also likely burrow in the sand to hide during the day and come out at night, so having large claws for digging would be helpful. Large ears and wings for cooling off would also be helpful, similar to elephants, fennec foxes, and jackrabbits. Desert dragons would also most likely possess eye caps to protect their eyes from sand. I imagine these dragons would be on the smaller side as well because a larger body would require more food and water. Or perhaps they would be like large snakes and only have to eat a large meal every month or so. It would be interesting if desert dragons were ambush predators that hid beneath the sand, like a trapdoor spider or antlion too. Just some concepts, you know? Next, we're going to talk about the possible draconic life cycle and how, yeah. I just want to say this image is very chaotic and I love it. Anyways, like any animal, dragons grow and reproduce. Most agree that dragons would lay eggs, and I subscribe to this sentiment as well. I think dragons would parent similarly to crocodilians, though some may be more like snakes. They would protect their eggs and hatchlings until they can fend for themselves, or they protect their eggs until they hatch like snakes, and then just leave them to fend for themselves because they have like built-in instincts and stuff. But if we're going with Oh, right. Sorry, I lost track of where I was. Hatchlings would likely be camouflaged to hide in the nest or be brightly colored to warn predators that they are dangerous, whether they have an actual defense or not. A bit like poison dart frogs, bee flies, or, if I remember correctly, some species of baby snakes, though I could be wrong on that part, so feel free to correct me. Um, they would likely eat their eggshells too for extra calcium, like many types of lizards. I think. I know lizards will eat their sheds for that extra calcium and protein. Anyways, going off the crocodile style of parenting, the parent or parents would definitely need to teach their hatchlings how to hunt and fly if they have wings, as well as how to defend themselves. Once they're juveniles, they can leave the nest to find their own territory and mate, as well as find their place in the world. Dragons, in my mind, grow rapidly until they're juveniles, and then grow slowly throughout their life until death, also heavily influenced by wings of fire. Um, so next, Draconic courtship is highly varied for everyone, so I will be discussing what I remember and only the safe for work part of things. In order to find a mate, dragons would coalesce in an event called the Great Convergence, which was like a huge festival. Traditionally, males would court females, though we were sapient and had complex views on gender and sexuality, so that wasn't always the case. Common methods of courtship included flight displays, gifts of food or treasure, and dueling competitors, and also just like showing off and being flashy, kind of like lizards and birds of paradise. Um, there, of course, not every dragon used a different method. Like I couldn't do flight displays because of an injury. Some didn't like dueling. It really just varies from dragon to dragon. That's just how it was for us. And next, dragons have a lot of defense mechanisms. So yeah, as with any other creature, dragons need defense mechanisms. This ranges from a number of things, from claws and teeth to breath weapons. Personally, I had fire breath, claws, teeth, and a blade on my tail, as you can see here. Um, there's a variety of different defense mechanisms, but I will focus on breath weapons such as fire, venom, etc. I would also like to thank the folks over at World Building Stack Exchange for helping for helping me figure out the science behind how this stuff would work. So fire breath. It's what dragons are popularly depicted with, but very much not the only weapon. Some are able to conjure it with magic, but some are based on science, and that's what I will be talking about. Personally, I theorize that dragons who breathe fire exhale a flammable gas rather than carbon dioxide, and they have a mechanism in their pouch where they create and they have a mechanism in their mouth where they create a spark. This can be many things. From you may remember spark pouches from Dragonology, or there could be like or in the Dragons of Fantasy Made Real documentary, you may recall that they ate a type of they ate platinum, if I remember correctly, to create that they coated their teeth with to make a spark. That's what happened. I'm just going to move on to the next panel. I'm so sorry. Venom. So some dragons can spit venom while others need to bite to inject it. Spitting dragons would likely function like spitting cobras, where they have hollow fangs and muscles in their venom glands to spray their venom at threats. Biting dragons would likely have more deadly venom since it would get directly into your bloodstream. There are 4 different types of venom, aka necrotoxins, neurotoxins, myotoxins, and cytotoxins. Necrotoxins cause necrosis or cell death and are found in the venom of vipers and bees. Neurotoxins affect the nervous system and often cause paralysis and are found in the venom of black widow spiders, scorpions, box jellyfish, cone snails, centipede, and blue-ringed octopuses. Myotoxins damage muscles by binding to a receptor and are found in rattlesnake and lizard venoms. And finally, cytotoxins kill individual cells and are found in the venom of honeybees. So it can vary from dragon to dragon and species to species on what their venom does, but I remember a long time ago I made an essay about how rainwing venom would work, and if I remember correctly, I concluded that they would most likely have have a necrotoxin due to the fact that their venom like destroys flesh and cells and stuff. So that's fun. Okay, next up we have ice breath. So I couldn't find finding a um it's okay. Ice breath is a bit harder to explain scientifically, but after some research, I found that it would make sense for ice dragons to breathe liquid carbon dioxide. Why not liquid nitrogen, you ask? Well, if pressurized, liquid carbon dioxide can exist at a regular temperature and when released will produce an effect similar to a fire extinguisher. However, vaporizing carbon dioxide needs 3 times as much energy per unit mass than liquid nitrogen, so the cooling effect would be more effective. Um, Now, that's if you're going on the scientific side of things. If you want to explain, if if there's also like magical explanations, of course, but that is a logical scientific explanation, in my opinion. And finally, lightning breath. So this is a bronze dragon and from Dungeons and Dragons, and they breathe lightning. And in order to breathe lightning, a dragon would need modified fangs or tusks in its mouth to produce a spark, sort of like a taser, along with electric organs like an electric eel, or maybe even some species of shark and other types of fish. It would also need to insulate itself from the ground to avoid frying its nervous system, and evidently wax is very good for this, so a lightning dragon would have to produce wax from its scales or maybe have a gland in its mouth that produces wax that it would cover itself in. Um, so basically, I like think of a lightning dragon as a giant taser. Um, Next, flight. So flight mechanics. This segment will be a little bit shorter, but it is interesting to think about how a big bulky animal like a dragon can fly. Luckily, there is a good explanation for this. Huge wings, aerodynamic builds, and a flight bladder. Now, flight bladders do not exist in the real world, but as I mentioned swim bladders earlier, I imagine dragons would fill their flight bladders with a lightweight gas such as hydrogen, like in the documentary. A dragon would also require a large heart to pump blood through its body while flying, and would need very muscular shoulders as well, and like a more robust chest, as you can see with many types of birds. I feel like proportionally, a lot of artists draw dragons with wings that are a little too small, but yeah, they would of course also need a tail for balance and steering and stuff. So really just varies from dragon to dragon. Here's also a better look at what a swim bladder looks like anatomically. And so now that I'm done yapping, I invite members of the audience to speak. Talk about your own draconic biology. Correct me on any mistakes I've made. Ask questions about my specific biology. The stage is open. If you'd rather type, I can read out your text for you if you'd prefer that. And now I'm going to look at the chat. Hello.
Hello. So for me, I mentioned briefly earlier in the chat that with the way that my breath weapon works, I like to, you know, assume that it's not so much just magic, although that's not uncommon in the case of Draconity in Dungeons and Dragons. Um, that's similar to how the biology of the red dragon is depicted in Dungeon Meshi. Whatever materials that are gathered from, say, foods I eat are utilized within a specific sac in my throat to help generate what is needed for my breath weapon. That way I have a consistent stream of energy, unless by some means I don't eat, which God forbid. Um, Outside of that, Let me see. I know someone had pointed out an interesting point about metallic dragons and um, maintaining our scales. It was from Varan saying wax would also help with tarnishing um, metallic dragons, and I'd like to say I'd agree. Considering that the biology of dragons in D&D are all different, at least in terms of like say scales. Um, as the name would imply, we have a lot of metallic alloys in our scales compared to say chromatic dragons that are a lot closer to say your traditional more lizard-like skin and scaling, or in the case of say prismatic dragons whose biology is a little bit different because it is more based on like um, cosmic perception, similar to planar dragons. But in the case of metallic dragons, considering that our very scales are made directly from actual metallic alloys, um, it would be safe to assume that in our own case, we would have to properly maintain the health of our scales the way you would properly maintain real silver or real gold and stuff like that. Um,
How
but yeah,
interesting.
um, and that's pretty much all I had to say, really.
That's super cool. That's genuinely um yeah, I'd shiny.
Shiny.
uh yeah, that's really awesome.
Mhm.
I yeah, if anyone else wants to come up and speak, you're welcome to. Oh, yes, and oh, I was reading through chat and Rakila mentioned that rainwing venom seems more like an acid, and I definitely agree. However, however, in the series, it is described as a venom, so that's why I called it such.
All right, sorry. There was something I forgot to mention, but I
Mhm.
just now remembered it. Wing shape. So there are a lot of diverse aspects to Draconity, but one thing I always thought was interesting is just like the diversity of like wing appearances and how they work for different dragons and such. So you have, of course, feather dragons who have wings that are a lot similar to, say, a very large bird's wing, or in some cases, similar to other mythical creatures' wings, like, say, griffins and the like. Or in my own case, as a gold dragon, instead of having a very typical um, arched shape wing, um, the kind of wings that I have are in the shape of sails. So they shoot upwards instead of curving downwards. You can probably see put a visual reference in the panel discussion for this, but and moreover to sort of accommodate with how I fly, I have like fin-like webbing going down my back. That's almost it opens and closes kind of like a Venus flytrap's mouth, but vertically instead of horizontally. So one thing that I think is interesting is that at least for a lot of different experiences pertaining to draconic biology, there is such a very vast breadth of how wings work for like all sorts of dragons across different breeds and species and such. And for some, it's not even just a singular pair of wings. So, like in the case of, say, a stormcutter, it's four four separate wings working in tandem with each other, um, in order to fly. And I don't know, that's just something that I've always observed, and I thought that was really cool.
Yes, wing shape for different wing shapes for different functions is really cool, and you can also see that in like real life birds and stuff. Like vultures, more built for like soaring and like just through open skies, while a lot of falcon wings tend to be like shorter, so they can tuck them in quickly when diving.
Yeah. Oh, and
Wow,
I also put a visual reference for my wings
oh,
that I was talking
that,
about earlier.
that is gorgeous.
Thank you.
No problem.
um, but yeah, Sometimes they do open and close by themselves. Sometimes, like I've seen in like the foremost picture, it's mostly almost like a ribbon when in flight,
Makes sense.
to help stabilize my larger actual wings, those
Mhm.
that are like pretty much in the shape of sails.
It kind of reminds me of a paraglider.
Yeah, like in retrospect, it does. And also, thank you for all the nice comments, everyone.
Uh, I don't really have a great reference of my wings because I don't remember them too well because I want to say they were more because I'm from the mountains, so they were probably like probably more similar to a falcon's wings or a hawk's wings, kind of more short and broad, so that we could
Mhm.
like dive and stuff and maneuver easier.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. Well, I say we. My dragon species is not necessarily a species. It's more just every dragon is unique, you know?
Right. But yeah,
The
it is,
yeah, that's kind of just yeah.
there's just a, what was I going to say? Um, but yeah, that was the thing I wanted to bring up. I almost forgot about it, but I'm glad I didn't.
Yes, I wish I had thought to talk about wing shape more because but thank you so much for bringing it up because it's a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, no
Uh
problem, of course.
yeah. Yeah, it's just yeah, again, if anyone wants to like bring up anything I failed to mention, please don't hesitate. If you'd like me to mention something or talk about something, yeah, Zem, I would very much encourage posting your wing shapes. Post just as long as it's related to the panel. I encourage you to post it. Oh, that's so cool! I love that. Very fluffy, very nice. Oh, it's like they're like bat wings. Very cool. I will say I think the way that my fire worked as a dragon was more on the magical side because I do remember it would like kind of start in my chest area and I had like and I was able to like the flame would start in my chest area and I just like blast it out like a flamethrower. So uh and I'd feel like that would probably cause damage and burns to the insides of any living thing. So probably magical in nature. I mean, I suppose dragons could have fireproof insides, unlike in How to Train Your Dragon, but I have no idea. I'm not, I am not, I'm very much not like a chemist or scientist or anything. I just, this information is stuff I did from researching uh, information people have already posted online. So, oh, hello.
Hello, can you hear me over here?
Yes.
This might be a bit too specific, but what do you think about Dergs and the taste, and their sense of taste? Like, I
Ooh,
vaguely
that
remember
is.
being able to taste like mammals, but
Hmm,
when I researched it, mammals, no, reptiles apparently don't have any taste buds. No, very specific, but
interesting.
uh, yeah, not sure if anyone else remembers something like that in the past life or whatever.
You know, I funny you should mention that. Okay, so as a dragon, I was carnivorous and a geovore, which means meat and crystals were on the menu for me. So, and I do remember I was able to taste stuff, and it's fuzzy, but I'm I do remember I had a fondness for human wine, which I think is very funny. So, but I also had, in particular, I know that I know that my favorite foods were amethyst crystals and any kind of poultry or type of bird. So that was like my preferred meal. to have. So I know I definitely had taste buds. I just don't remember it in too much detail, you know?
You and me both.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, that's a cool thing to try to recall or think about.
Yeah,
Yes,
it is very
I definitely
interesting.
tasted.
Nice.
Okay, well, thank you everybody. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm gonna be jumping off the stage for now.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I found this is maybe something. Okay, this is maybe a topic for that I'll touch on later. But there is this. I can't remember the name, but there is this type of Vietnamese candy that kind of simulates the texture of crystals. It's like crunchy jelly. It's very good. The texture is very nice. Yes, I do like rock candy. However, I have sensitive teeth, so it's painful, both emotionally and physically. This is what I get for eating ice all the time, but that's fine. Yeah, I'll have to look up the name of that type of candy, but and I would like to yeah, I'll have to I let I'd like to try more of it because flavors I happened to get when I ordered some were not to my liking. So we're getting off topic though. So I'll talk about like that sort of thing later in voice chat maybe. Oh, Kana, I believe my tongue was forked probably like a reptile like most reptiles, but I'm not sure of the specifics of it. I just know that I was more reptilian. Having barbs like a feline's tongue would make a lot of sense, though. I think. Hmm. What is another thing I can talk about? What is because there are a number of things that I neglected to mention in my slideshow and essay. So if anyone has anything to add, oh yes, horns. I did not mention those. So horns are present in a lot of dragons. Not all of them, but a lot. And for us, they were for us for my type of in my life as a dragon, they were mostly like for show and like for like impressing potential mates as like or as like an intimidation thing. But I know for some dragons they can be used as weapons. Like some may have like forward facing horns that they can like just like stabby stab with. So that's pretty cool. Oh yes, and Zem, yes, mammalian dragons, very valid. I love you guys. You guys are so cool. And having whiskers and about them having whiskers, very very cool. Whiskers are very interesting, and the way I don't know, I think because I grew up having cats for most of my life, so I've always wondered what it's like to have whiskers, and it just seems really interesting, you know. Let's see, Kana, feet shape. So I'll read out chat, but Three Dragons Roar also said, I'm assuming this is about your horns. That is really cool, very fun, very interesting. I like that. Horns being territory markers is really cool. Let's see, and for dragon feet shape, right? Ours were more like bird talons or hands, so to speak, and the front anyways. I know we could like pick things up with our front talons, paws, hands, I don't know, but our back feet were more like bird talons, or kind of a mix between bird talons and paws. And ears. Yes, we had it really varies from dragon to dragon. Personally, I had like, as you can see in this picture here, I had like kind of large ears. So they didn't really perk up like this. They were more like swooped back most of the time. They only really did that when I was like very interested in something and trying to listen intently. There's only so much you can do to be accurate to yourself in a video game. Let's see. Oh, Zactan, that is so cool. Oh, I need my glasses for this. The text is very small. I'll open that on my phone to take a look. Um, sorry, I was just able to look at the cladogram that Zactan made, which is so cool. I love that. I know I didn't. Oh, thank you, Leah. Yeah, I was. Yeah, a lot of people call me a zebra dragon, which I think is very funny because zebras I think it's funny because zebras are usually depicted as like, oh, poor prey animal, but in reality zebras are so mean. Like, they are very mean animals. I'm not saying they're all bad, but like they tend to be quite mean. Which is funny because when I was a dragon, I was not the nicest individual. I picked a lot of fights, which is how I got a bunch of scars and a broken wing. So, yeah. Let's see. Oh, another thing I could mention is now I don't have a scientific explanation for this, but I also remember most dragons from my world possessed a magic that allowed them to turn into a human or humanoid form to like travel or blend in with humans, because humans and dragons did not get along very well in the world I lived in. So that was either to like blend in, hide, whatever, just whatever you wanted. I liked to use it to go into town and steal things without, if I didn't want to cause too much of a scene by setting fires. So, yeah. um, again, I would again, if anyone wants to speak on voice, you are very welcome. There's no pressure though. It's all really cool. Thank you. But yeah, I think because okay. Did you know that interestingly, it's theorized that a lot of dinosaurs were actually warm-blooded, which I think gives a lot of credence to the idea of of dragons being warm-blooded, though it would depend on the dragon, of course. For me, I think it would make sense if my species was or not my species, but me and the other dragons in my region. I think it would make sense if we were warm-blooded, because being cold-blooded and living in the mountains would be difficult. I think not a fun time, you know. Yes, it does sound difficult to be. Yes, I can't. Okay, I'm actually gonna. Yeah, crocodiles and gators are large and cold blooded, but I don't think that the size that Kana was like going for, like maybe closer to like elephant sized. I'm assuming. Are sharks cold blooded or warm blooded? I cannot remember. I should know this because sharks are my favorite animal, but so yes, sharks are cold blooded. So mhm. I just want to thank you guys for showing up real quick, because I was so nervous. I was so nervous about this panel, and just seeing all you guys being like very enthusiastic about it makes me very happy.
Yee, you're doing wonderful during this panel, actually.
Thank you. I'm very good at talking a lot.
Well, that's a good thing in my view.
Yeah. How we would take care of our scales is something Kana mentioned, and honestly, I think so. It rained a lot in the mountains where I'm. Most of these answers will be based on what I remember, but I remember the mountains I came from were very rainy and very stormy. So usually I would just like stand in the rain and then shake out the water, and I'm like, yep, that's bath time. Sometimes I would like uh it would make sense to have a barbed tongue, because I do remember like if I got like something stuck in my scales, I would like lick at it to get it off, like if I got blood encrusted on my scales or whatever. I don't know, like injuries or something. Let's see. Oh, I didn't know that not all reptiles were ectothermic. That's really interesting. Okay, so Dragon asks, do you know anything about feathers? And my answer there is no. I'm very sorry. I think feathers are really cool. I think birds are really cool. However, I'm not a feathered dragon, and I have never owned birds, but I think feathered dragons are very cool and very interesting. And I think like the like oh my god, I lost my words, but uh feathers I feel like would be very interesting to maintain and take care of, like, and there's also so much variety in feather types as well. I feel like someone with more knowledge on the topic would be able to talk about that more, but I think that's pretty cool. uh let's see. Another thing I should mention. So, do you guys think dragons? Do you think scaled dragons would shed their scales? Because like there are do crocodilians shed? I need to look this up. Yeah, I think we shed our scales, though shedding it all at one time like a snake would be very difficult on account of all the limbs and appendages and stuff. So I think it would be more like a lizard where it just like flakes off and stuff. Though I will say, if you have eye caps, then that would mean you probably shed. If you didn't have eyelids, that meant you probably had eye caps, so you would probably shed. Oh, yeah, that's interesting, Kana. And I love the meme that Xylanth sent. One of my favorite images. Oh, interesting. Thank you, egoism. Uh, I think my scale texture was less like because I didn't really have osteoderms, and I think my scale texture was more similar to like maybe like a snake or some other type of soft scaled reptile. So yes, nictitating membranes. I'm in the nictitating membrane camp. Very helpful when you're trying to fly through a metric fuck ton of rain. So a nictitating membrane is when you have a third eyelid, like crocodiles, cats, and a lot of other animals. Yeah, like Zactan scent. Oh yes, as Zim mentioned something interesting. I don't see a lot of herbivorous dragon representation. There are the rainwings and wings of fire do mostly eat fruit, though they're more omnivorous because they're not obligate herbivores. They can eat meat as well. So I don't see a lot of herbivorous dragons in media or dragons that have other means of eating other than like rocks and meat and stuff. I don't. Okay, as I mentioned before, I was a geovore and a carnivore, but I don't think I was like an obligate geovore and carnivore because I could eat other foods just fine. I think that was just like what was most nutritious for me, you know? Um, oh, I'm very curious how. Okay, uh, for those of you who know how your size as a dragon, how do you think that? Why do you think you like? Why do you think you? What's your theory for like why you evolved to be like that? Because I know I evolved. I know I was on the larger side, like 20 feet tall or so, like think Wings of Fire dragon sized. Maybe a little smaller or a little larger, give or take. I have no idea. But I remember I think that just made travel in the mountains easier. Like I could cover more ground a lot easier, and it was just like, you know, gosh, I am so good at words, you guys. But as I mentioned, I could shapeshift into like a kind of human or humanoid form to like blend in if I needed to go somewhere, if I needed to go into a smaller space. So speaking of planets, I think my draconic self existed on like an alternate version of Earth where like dragons and other mythological creatures were real. I don't know if I don't know if we had like unicorns and stuff like that, but I know we had dragons, so that means we could have unicorns. No idea. um I love seeing how diverse everyone's draconic forms are. It's very cool. I think I'm going to end this panel in about 8 minutes at 8 p.m. So again, if you if you want to get on stage to speak, now is the time to do it. Oh, Arctic dragons having blubber. That would make a lot of sense because, you know, seals, polar bears, whales, you know, lot of animals that live in the Arctic have that. So that would make a lot of sense for them for Arctic dragons to have blubber. Very good for insulation and stuff. I'm glad everyone's enjoying this panel. I know it was a little messy and chaotic, but I'm glad you guys like it. If you guys yeah, if you guys want to, I would be glad to join voice chat after this and have a vocal discussion with you guys if you don't want your if you don't want to be recorded. Also, Kana, having flight tax is really cool and really interesting. It kind of it makes me think a little bit of Prehistoric Planet's interpretation of I want to say they're called titanosaurs. I could be wrong though. Yes, you should watch Prehistoric. You should watch Prehistoric Planet. It's really good. It's my favorite depiction of dinosaurs and other prehistoric creatures. Also, it helped me realize I'm a Mosasaurus Therian, so that's pretty cool. Uh, let's see. So 5 minutes until 8 p.m. So are you guys all right? Are you guys all right if we like stop the recording and close the panel? Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right. Yeah, looks like we're all chill with that. So thank you for coming. Thank you for enjoying this, and yeah. Let me know when the recording has stopped. I'm gonna check. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Kira.